Hello and welcome to Breakfast for Pancakes. I am your host, PK Sullivan. This week we're going across the pond for some comfort food. Welsh Rarebit is a great way to practice a couple of foundational cooking techniques. First, we've got the bechamel and mornay sauce. These are fundamental French sauces. They get used in a huge variety of recipes. They will come up over and over and over again as you learn to cook. If you learn to recognize them and understand what they are and how they work, you'll be able to cook those dishes a lot easier. A bechamel is a basic white sauce. It is milk thickened with a roux. A mornay builds on that by adding cheese. So really, macaroni and cheese is just a mornay sauce with noodles. They're great fundamentals to know, understand, and have in your repertoire. Next is the gratin, which is the process of browning the top of something that is casserole-like. Scalloped potatoes are a great example. Then we're going to use eggs to thicken them. Egg yolks are a classic way to thicken a sauce. This is another tool that is great just to have in your toolbox, ready to go when you need it. The added fat and protein from the egg will cause the cheese sauce to really brown up beautifully under the broiler. One way to describe rarebit using the terms that we just discussed is a gratin of an egg-enriched mornay sauce on toast points. Sounds pretty fancy. Really, it's cheese sauce on toast that's been broiled. Pretty simple, straightforward, absolutely delicious. This is great comfort food. Growing up, my family had the redneck version of Welsh Rarebit. We called it bouilla. It was Velveeta, milk, Carl Buddig beef, and a few seasonings. So that got spread across toast. We had it for special breakfast when Dad was home and would be cooking. Don't take this recipe as gospel. Play around, use your different cheeses, go for different consistencies. I particularly like it when the cheese gets bubbly and crisp on top and then is just gooey in the middle on top of the nice crunchy toast. But again, there's a whole range and gamut of recipes out there to play with. Explore, find your own. All right, let's get to cooking. 30 grams of butter, 30 grams of flour, 150 milliliters of whole milk, 55 grams of grated cheese, 50 milliliters of beer, 5 milliliters Worcestershire sauce, 5 milliliters mustard, 2 large egg yolks, 4 to 6 slices of bread. Alright, so there's not really any countertop prep once you've got your mise en place, so it's straight to the stove. We're building a classic blonde roux. Get a medium saucepan on the stove over low heat. Add your butter and let it melt down. Once the water has all boiled off, go ahead and whisk in the flour. Whisk continuously until the roux is smooth and pale yellow. Now stream in the milk, whisking constantly. This much roux can thicken half a liter, or a pint in imperial terms. It's going to be super thick with just 150 milliliters of milk. Notice I pull the sauce off the heat as it thickens up. I wanted to keep whisking to make it smooth, but you don't want to overcook the milk. At this point, we have an incredibly thick bechamel sauce. Now, off heat, fold in the cheese 1/3 at a time. The bechamel should be hot enough to melt it without difficulty. This needs to be off the heat because if it gets too hot, the cheese will separate and your sauce will break into a greasy mess. At this point, everything seizes up pretty hard. The mornay isn't really liquid at this point because the bechamel was so incredibly thick. You'll end up with basically a rubbery paste. But it's fine. You're not done adding liquids. With the cheese completely melted, move your pan over to the counter where we'll finish adding the ingredients. Add your beer, Worcestershire, and mustard. This will look very unappetizing at first, lumpy bits and liquid, but keep whisking and it'll smooth out nicely. A quick note on what beer to use. Avoid hoppy beers, IPAs, imperial stouts, American pales, that sort of thing. The bitterness of the hops concentrate as the beer cooks down and becomes really unpleasant. I'm using a dry Irish stout, you can probably guess which one. Most lagers will work just fine, as well as many English ales like milds, bitters, and porters. Try to keep the IBUs under 30. I haven't tried using a cider, but if you wanted to use one, I would suggest a dry cider that isn't too sweet and still has a lot of apple flavor. Apple and cheddar is a classic flavor pairing that might work well. If you try it, let me know how it goes. It's important to wait to add these ingredients until after the cheese has been incorporated for a few reasons. First, adding alcohol to the sauce before the cheese will cause the milk to curdle. There's no recovering from that, you'll have a grainy sauce. Trust me, I've messed up a few beer cheese dips doing exactly that. Second, adding these ingredients now will further cool the mixture. This lets us add the eggs without having to go through a complicated tempering process. Speaking of which, go ahead and whisk those egg yolks into the mix. This will loosen up the sauce even more so that it has a smooth, spreadable consistency. At this point, the sauce is done. You can stop here, cover the sauce, and keep it in the refrigerator for up to a couple of days. If you're having guests over, or even if you want to have this for breakfast, you just prep it the night before so that things are a little easier in the morning. Mine is in the fridge, it's gonna wait till dinner. I'll come back, make some toast, stick it under the broiler, and we'll do the tasting. Set your oven to broil and make your toast. Then spread the cheese sauce across the tops of each slice in an even layer. Be sure to get full coverage, edge to edge, all the way around, to keep the crust from burning under the broiler. Now get it under the broiler until the sauce browns and is bubbly across the entire top. Serve immediately.
No.
Apparently the Welsh used to be mocked for their love of roasted cheese. I don't know why anybody would do that. That roasted cheese is delicious. It's rich, it's creamy. Brown cheese tastes so good. It changes the flavor of whatever cheese it is. Here it's a nice white cheddar, so it just deepens the nuttiness and sort of earthy flavors of the cheddar. Tones down the sharpness a little bit. The beer in there adds a little bit of sweetness. That is nice because it's a rich, heavy dish. Having that little bit of sweetness sort of lightens it up a little bit. If you wanted to garnish this, I would probably do some fresh herbs, maybe a squeeze of lemon, just something to lighten the dish a little bit. It doesn't need it, but if you don't want something that is rich and heavy and sort of comfort food, late night pub snack, you know, lighten it up with a little bit of acid and some nice fresh vegetable flavors. Thank you for watching. I always appreciate it. Be sure to hit the subscribe button down below so that you get all of my videos as they release. I do have a Patreon, and members get a lot of fun benefits, including access to my Discord server, as well as early access to all of my videos and some Patreon exclusive videos that will be coming very shortly. You don't want to miss out, and I'll see you next time.